Welcome to In the Aftermath, the podcast where real life gets messy. I'm your host, a professional biohazard remediation and crime scene cleaning tech, here to share the stories, lessons, and raw moments from the front lines. If you're ready for the truth behind the tape, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Welcome back to In the Aftermath podcast, where I share experience of my day-to-day experiences with my job. If you're new here, I'm a professional biohazard remediation, crime scene cleaning technician, I guess you'd call it. I have my own business doing it, so I'm going to share some of my experiences on the job on this podcast. If you already listened to the first episode, thank you so much for your support. I wasn't sure if anyone was going to listen to it, but I've come to realize that I think people are pretty interested in hearing this kind of thing. So I'm super thankful whoever has already listened, and if you're listening to this one again, thank you so much. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about the first job that I walked out on. And then I'm going to answer some Q&As too. So this one's probably going to be a little bit shorter than the last one because the story is not very long. But it was a job that stuck with me. Probably, honestly, the hardest call that I've been on so far. And it wasn't an after death or anything like that. It was a hoarding type squalor situation. So no, nothing crazy traumatic, but I mean, in the traditional sense, it wasn't very traumatic, but this situation really got to me. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. As you can see, I have a new studio. Doesn't it look sick? I am so happy with it. Got my little evidence markers here. Got my crime scene tape here. Got my little biohazard sign. If you're listening on audio though, you won't see that, so you definitely should jump over to YouTube and watch it to check out my new studio, because I think I kind of outdid myself. Not to toot my own horn, but look at this. So this was a few months ago. I had got an email from someone, and it was the sister of somebody that needed help. And so I forget what she wrote in her email. I think she wrote something about how her sister was struggling with postpartum depression and needed some help around the house because she had really neglected her living situation. So I said, yeah, absolutely. If you want to give me a call, we can discuss it more. And so she gave me a call, and she said, yeah, so my sister has had 6 children within the past 5 years. Is that right? 5 children or maybe it was the other way around. 5 children in the past 6 years. Anyways, lots of kids. And none of them were twins, so they were all just like back-to-back pregnancies. And I go, okay. And she said, yeah, and I was in her house the other day, and it really scared me. And I'm like, okay, can you explain a little bit more about the property and the work that needs to be done? And so sure enough, she did, but she kind of prefaced it by saying that one of her sister's kids, one of the youngest ones, so, I mean, they're all very young if they were born in the past 6 years, but one of the toddlers, like baby, probably couldn't have been older than 2. She fell out of the 2nd story window of their home, had to go to the hospital. The child was fine, but since the child went to the hospital for that, then CIS got involved. And if you're listening from a different country or province or whatever, I've apparently it's different amongst provinces and countries and states, obviously. So CAS in Ontario is Children's Aid Society, and it's the same kind of association as Child Protective Services or like family services, that kind of thing. So since the kid fell out of the window, then CIS got involved. And so the reason this sister was calling me was because she was trying to help her sister get her house back into a better state because CIS had a planned visit coming on the following Tuesday. Keep in mind, this is Thursday when she called me. And then the following Tuesday was the planned visit from CAS. And I guess CAS was coming to make sure that she put locks on the windows and everything and made sure that she's making an effort to make the home safer than it was. So she said, yeah, but the state of the house is just not good and wouldn't be good for CAS to go in there and see it like that. So we're trying to get it cleaned up before they come. And at first I was like, I was perfectly ready and prepared to go and help this, poor woman. She said to me over the phone that there is an active spider infestation, roach infestation, probably bed bugs, garbage everywhere, and just, it was not a good situation. So I went, and they were really concerned about money because obviously biohazard remediation is not a cheap service. If this job was going to be priced out, it would probably be around 12 to 15,000, I'd say. But anyways, I go there and it's a low income, like subsidized housing, part of the community. I'm not going to list the city specifically just because I don't want to get too specific, just to protect the mother's identity and the sister's identity. So I'm not going to say what city it was in. Anyways, low income housing, and it's very eye-opening because that was the first time that I had ever been there. I didn't even realize that there was a place like that. And I do have to preface that by saying I am very privileged to not have had to experience a place like that in my life. But here I was, the first time ever seeing something like that. You just hear shouting and screaming a lot in the neighborhood, and otherwise it's pretty quiet, but it doesn't look like a very nice place. So anyways, I walk in, and very nice woman. She's just got a lot of anxiety, and obviously it's hard to have someone come into your home when it's looking like that. So I completely understood that. They were really concerned about pricing. So at first I was going to split my hourly rate in half just because I felt so bad for this mother and the situation she was in. And on my way there to actually do the job, I was just in my mind, I was thinking, you know what, there's no way that this family can afford to pay me my normal rate. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to do this one pro bono. And I get there, and I know I had already seen it. Like the day before, I had gone in to look at it just to see what I was working with. But the day after, I came back, and once I actually started working, like the first, 30 minutes I spent bringing, probably 25 garbage bags out that the sister had already put together, but it was just in a corner of the living room. And I'm just going to explain the house so that you get a picture of what was going on. The mom had locked her kids upstairs so that they wouldn't be bothering me. But I could hear them screaming and crying, and the mother was trying to scrub some things like while I was doing my part. Yeah, like there was just this massive spider web hanging down from the walls. Well, all the walls, I guess. And once I started to shovel, because you couldn't see any floor in this house, I just started shoveling the garbage in the living room, moving things around. And I realized like there's just roaches crawling out of everything. The walls are black because of how dirty they are. Like obviously not in the whole area, but you can tell like the areas that you walk past and brush your hands around, or like around the corner if you're like using it to hold yourself up. They're just covered in dirt. And I start looking more closely at things, and there's this brown smudge all over the furniture in the living room. And I'm like, that's poo. Like that's poo. It has to be. There's dirty full diapers all over the ground. There's shards of glass amidst the rubble, I'll say. The entire time I was there, I could just hear one of the kids banging her head against the wall the entire time. It was just like, she was just banging her head repeatedly. And that went on for probably like an hour and 20 minutes that I was there. And it wasn't stopping. Like it was constant. And so the mom was upstairs doing her thing, trying to clean her area. And I just kind of stood there and I'm like, this is a lot more than cleaning. Like, this is a crisis is what I'm looking at right here. And so I packed up my stuff and I left without telling her because I just felt so bad. I didn't want to confront her and have to tell her that this is beyond me. And I just felt so terrible for her kids that were living in that. You couldn't see anything on the floor. There was so much stuff and just like so dirty. I can't even really explain it. And I can't use photos. I do have one short video of it, but I'm not going to use it because it's a very sensitive situation and I don't want to make the mom feel any more shame than she already does if she ever comes across this. So yeah, I'm not going to use any pictures or anything like that. So I hope that I'm doing an okay job at describing it. But it was, those kids were living in hell, like, you know, and it was very sad to see that. There's toys everywhere that were covered in crap, like actual, like shit. Just like, you know, you couldn't walk anywhere safely because there was so much stuff. At first, I wasn't going to report it to CIS because I'm like, okay, they're already coming Tuesday. But like, I was there and while I was cleaning, I'm like, I can't continue doing this without feeling like I'm complicit in enabling this woman. And the only reason why she asked me to clean up is because CIS had a planned visit for Tuesday. And so I'm like, I just didn't feel good. Like, my conscience was just getting to me. I didn't feel good about continuing for the sake of the children. Because I mean, like, I understand people can struggle and people can be depressed and, you know, cleaning your home and taking care of yourself comes at the very last on the list when you're in a situation like that and you're in survival mode. I get that. Totally, completely. But when you have 5 small children, I just think there has to be a point where someone steps in and helps these children. And so I sat with it for about a day. I messaged my aunt who used to work. I don't know if it was CIS specifically. I know that it was a government position and she was the one that would actually go in to the homes where children needed to be removed and remove them. So if you can imagine how tough of a job that would have been. I reached out to her and basically I just asked her, I wanted validation. I'm like, did I do the right thing leaving, or am I an asshole for, you know, leaving this poor woman without help? And she said, no. She said, you absolutely did the right thing. I'm actually going to read the message she wrote to me. She said, you absolutely did the right thing by leaving. Clearly, these children have experienced significant, if not beyond horrific trauma. For these behaviors to occur is my professional opinion. I think your decision is a good one, sound for the right reasons. Though it's best that the children's society to see the home in the condition that it is. Just when you thought the job couldn't get any uglier or rock bottom for people, I think this situation is close to it. And I sent her a video of it so that she could see. But yeah, and I asked her if she thought that I should report it to CIS because I'm like, okay, I know they're coming Tuesday, but the sister, after I called the sister and told her that I left. I just wanted to be honest with her and let her know the reason that I left because I couldn't help her. And basically what I told her was that the help that your sister needs is beyond me. I really wish I could help, but I feel like I'm covering this up in a way and I'm enabling your sister. And I think the only reason why she's getting things cleaned up is because CIS is coming. So it kind of makes you wonder how long the situation would have gone on if CIS wasn't coming or if the child didn't fall out of the window. My aunt told me, I think you have a duty to report. Every adult has a responsibility to report concerns for the welfare and well-being of children. So I did. I called CIS and I sent them the video and everything. And honestly, I was very taken back at how they handled the situation. Because I'm like, here I am thinking this is like awful and terrible. And maybe it's not my right to say. They're the professionals. This is their job. They see situations that are just terrible. So I'm not really in the right position to be judging their professional opinion. But I was just surprised, I guess, at how they handled it. I told them about it and told them the circumstances and the kid hitting in the head against the wall the entire time. And they said, yeah, well, I think it's a good thing that she wants to clean it up. So we're not just going to take 5 kids away because the house is dirty. And I'm like, okay, I can understand maybe the house being dirty, but this is a hazard. I mean, you have broken glass all over the floor. You have crap everywhere. Like, it's not safe for children to be living in that. But like I said, what do I know? I'm just a person that saw the situation. I'm sure they see a lot worse, but I was just very surprised, and it was very sad. It doesn't hit me as hard because I don't have my own kids, but I do have 2 little cousins that I love very much. And to think of, I don't know, it's just very tough. You start to feel bad for kids, and when does it become someone else's responsibility to step in and, help these kids that are in this crisis, so anyways, that's the first job I walked out on and quit, essentially. I don't regret it. I don't know where the case stands. I don't really think it's any of my business to ask. But it was sad. Let's just say it was very sad, and I still think about it. And you think about how many children are living in a situation like that. Has anyone watched Breaking Bad? And the scene, like, where the ginger kid is with Jesse, and the house is just an absolute wreck, like it's a crack house. Like, that kind of put me in mind to what this house looked like. Obviously, I didn't see any drugs at play. That's not to say that there weren't. Anywho, yeah, so that's my first very tough call, and no one died. It was just a very rough situation to see people living like that. Okay, some Q&As from people. I put it on my Instagram story on my personal page, and I only got like 2 questions, so I made some up. I'm just gonna be completely honest here. I made some up. So I'll give you the first 2 that I was asked on my personal page. First one from Haley. Hi, Haley, if you're watching. She asked me if I have to be on call for my job. And so the answer is yes. I operate as a 24/7 emergency service, so I've given up the possibility of missing holidays, because when there's an emergency, someone commits suicide or someone's found dead, obviously, it's a very emergency type situation, and those jobs do cost a lot more as well because they're emergencies. Yeah, so have I gotten an emergency call? Not really. The closest I got to an emergency call was the situation that I got called for in my last podcast that I talked about. That situation was kind of like an emergency. I went right away. Another one that got close to that was, I will talk about it in another podcast because this one was sad, but a woman went away for the weekend, came home, and found her husband passed away on the couch. So I didn't go right away, but I went the morning after. So definitely sometimes there will be emergency type calls. I mean, not necessarily you don't have to go out right away in the middle of the night. I haven't gotten a call like that yet. I think in a lot of situations where there is a suicide or a death like that, like this woman in particular, she left and went to go stay with her daughter. And I think that's pretty normal for situations like that. It's like, I just need to get out of here. Like, this is too much for me. I can't imagine a lot of situations where people would stay in the home or the area unless they really had to, like they had nowhere else to go. So they're not always emergencies, like within a few hours. I do have a 3-hour response time. I do advertise that. So if there's ever a situation where I need to get up and go, I will. And my phone always stays on. My ringer always stays on. So yeah, hope that answers your question. Next question I had was from Ellie. Hi Ellie, if you're watching this. Have I ever puked? No, I haven't puked. And it's funny with me, I I don't puke because things are gross. I puke because I have anxiety. Like when I was in advertising and marketing, I had to do a lot of presentations and group work and stuff. That's when I'd be puking. When I have something that I'm very nervous about, I will puke. But in terms of being like grossed out on a job, especially if there's people present, I do keep my composure and try not to make faces. But like I said in the past, the face of disgust is kind of hard to hide, but you do your best. There was a situation in particular at the OPP detachment in Kempville where I got called to, where there was a man in custody overnight that decided he wanted to shit and throw it at the camera. And so it was an 8 foot or 9 foot holding cell. Anyway, I think 8 foot, because I had to go up on an 8 foot ladder to scrape the shit off the wall. And this was the type of situation, like the janitor called me personally and he goes, "This is where I draw the line. Like, I'm okay with cleaning up puke and pee and vomit and blood and stuff." He said, "But this is where I draw the line. This is beyond me." So went to go do that. But anyways, moral of this story is that when I was up on the 8 foot ladder cleaning the camera that had the shit on it, they could see me through the camera while I was cleaning it. So you try to be as professional as possible, because I don't want to come across as like, I need to be the person that can come into the situation and handle whatever's thrown at me. And so that was actually no problem, but very interesting how your mind works and how you can tell your mind things or get your mind to behave a certain way given the circumstances. And maybe that kind of falls into like a survival type scenario where you just really don't want to look unprofessional. So you try your very best to act professional. And for some reason in situations like that, I'm able to turn my disgust off because I know that I'm there to do a job and I know that it needs to get done. But when it comes to someone going to take a shit in the washroom and I walk in right after, I'd be gagging. Like, I can't handle it. When people fart in front of me, I'd be gagging. Like, I can't handle that. So it's very crazy to me how I can go and clean poo off of a wall and not gag whatsoever. But then someone takes a shit and I'm like, that's the grossest shit I've ever smelled in my life. So, no, I've never puked. Personal situations get to me more than work situations. And maybe that's just because I'm able to compartmentalize better than, I don't know. Okay. Thank you for that question, though. Thank you for asking. Okay, a few more questions I'm going to answer on here. Do you ever regret choosing this job? No. No, not at all. In fact, this is my calling. This is something that I love. I wish I would have found it sooner. I wish I would have started the business sooner. But no, I'm in my element. Every job I work, yes, it's hard work, but I love helping people. I love it. I couldn't imagine doing anything else. Was it scary doing your first cleanup? Yes. I knew exactly what to do though, so I wasn't afraid of messing things up. I had imposter syndrome because it was my first job and I had to act like I'd been doing it for a while. That's why I was scared. I wasn't worried that I wasn't going to do the job right because I've been cleaning for so long, and it's like the process is very straightforward. So I knew exactly what to do. How do you handle the emotional sides of things? I talk to my friends and my family. I have a very good support system in my life, thankfully. I talk to my boyfriend. He's very good at listening. Yeah, I just talk about it. I don't keep anything in. There's not one thing that I've kept in. And I can't ever do that because I think that's when it gets dangerous. What's the biggest misconception people have about crime scene cleanup? It's not always crime scenes, if ever. I haven't had a crime scene yet. That's just kind of the general umbrella that it falls underneath. Like,
I mean, technically you could say when someone's found dead, it's a bit of a crime scene because, I mean, not necessarily though. I mean, when someone's found dead, the police have to come and the coroner has to come to clear the scene and everything. So, I mean, in that, I mean, yeah, I guess it could be considered a crime scene, but it's just the general umbrella that things fall under. That's why it's called that. In the States, there would be a lot more of that. But in the Ottawa, Kingston, Smith Falls area, I mean, eventually I'm going to get called to one. But there's also so many other companies out there that do it. So it takes a while to build your name up and be called for situations like that. What's the weirdest thing you've ever found in a job? Giant dildos. That's all I'm going to say. How do you handle the smell? How do you get used to it? You don't. You just tough it out and you wear your respirators. And that usually does a pretty good job of blocking the smell out. Full face, more than half face respirators, but yeah. Has this job changed the way you see life and death? Absolutely. I think I have had a habit, and I mean everyone has a habit of taking life for granted, and the truth is you never really know when your life is going to end, and everyone's life is going to end. We're all going to die. I'm going to die. You're going to die. Everyone in your family's going to die. All your friends are going to die. It's just a matter of time and when that happens. And I think with that said, I think it's important to cherish everything you have. And I know it gets hard sometimes with, you know, conflict and emotions and being mad at people. You just don't want to talk to them. But I think a good lesson to learn is always say goodnight. Never go to bed mad. And I don't know, just, I know it's hard in a lot of situations and it's easy for me to say, but try to resolve conflict. Don't let things go too long, like without contact with someone, because you never truly know. Life is just so precious and tomorrow's not promised. So check up on your loved ones as well. That's a huge one. Huge. Because you just, like for me, I think of the mess that it's going to cause. Anyways, like if they're not found in a timely manner. Do you ever have to rip out floors and walls like in those crime shows, or is that exaggerated? No, that is not exaggerated. Yes, we do have to rip out floors, subfloors, drywall, carpet, etc., etc. Whatever's saturated with blood and bodily fluid, it has to go. What's the messiest kind of job? I haven't had one of these yet, but the messiest kind of jobs in terms of after death would be a shotgun suicide. And depending on the gauge of the bullet, that depends on how big of a mess you're going to clean up. Because if you think of it, it's a human explosion at that point. And in situations like that, you're dealing with skull fragment, blood, brain matter on the wall, teeth, jaw, whatever kind of blows up. And that's really sad and a really tough situation that I have yet to experience. I know exactly what to do when and if I do. But yeah, that would be the messiest kind of job. And you never want to assume that the mess is just in the room where it happened. You should never assume that, because bones can ricochet and they can end up down the hallway, and not just in the room where it happened. So yes, that would be the messiest. How do you get brain off the walls? So brain is interesting in that when it hits the wall and the air hits it, it hardens, kind of like plaster. And so by the time that we get there, it would need to be steamed off of the wall. So I have a professional steam cleaner, like $4,000 machine, that you have to use to steam it off. And then you scrape it with a plastic scraper and then obviously dispose of that as biomedical waste. which I think it would be anatomical waste because it is tissue. It's not like it's a organ. What kind of calls have you got the most? Are they mostly suicides, unattended deaths, or hoarding situations? Hoarding. Definitely hoarding. And not always like, I don't know, I think there's a misconception between hoarding and squalor, because hoarding disorder is, when people develop an obsessive need to keep items. And sometimes that may fall upon garbage or reusable takeout containers, stuff like that. But a lot of the times it's objects. And so typically a lot of the calls that I get called for are squalor cleanup, where people have been very depressed and their home has been neglected in a long time, or their home has been neglected for a long time. And so now they just need to get rid of all the garbage and stuff. So that's very easy. And a question that I've gotten a lot is, how do you handle the conflict with hoarders? And the answer is, I don't. Because as much as I'd like to think that I can be a counselor on these jobs, it's not my job. And it takes a lot of therapy and professional, psychology to be able to work with a hoarder and get them to understand that they can part with things and that it's okay to part with things. I don't have enough knowledge or training in that. I'd like to think that I'm okay at doing it, but the truth is I'm not. It's easier situations like squalor cleaning, or if there's a counselor there with them that can help them, or a family member even that can kind of counsel them through the process and make them, realize that it is okay to get rid of things. But that is a very tough situation to be able to help someone that is suffering with hoarding disorder and not willing to part with anything. Okay, last question. What's the average cost for something like an after-death cleanup? That depends significantly on many factors. How long the body's been there, what they passed away on, how big of a person they were, the flooring, the material that they passed away on, whether or not there was air conditioning, if there was, just heat in the middle of the summer. So to give you a ballpark range, I would say anywhere from $1,500 to $50,000. I went in and quoted a job for an after-death cleanup, and I quoted $25,000, and Service Master came in right after me and quoted $50,000. So that was a very eye-opening experience for me, because I'm trying to gauge how much to charge for things. But I'm still new at this, so it's, a very good lesson to learn. But I'm also a small business, so I can afford to charge a lot less for these types of situations than bigger companies that are massive and have bigger overhead to account for. But that's a general range of how much it can cost. Yeah, so that's it for today's episode. I feel like this one was kind of boring compared to the last one, but oh well. If you listened, thank you very much. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and send this to your friends if you think that they would enjoy it as well. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say for today. Thank you so much for listening, and take care of each other. Check up on your loved ones, and until next time.